Tēnā tātou katoa, me karaki a tātou. E tau nei ki runga i a tātou katoa te wairua o ngā mātua tīpuna, nā rātou I whakatakoto te ara he hiko I ngā mātātou ngauri. I whakatōkia o tātou ngākau ki ngā tikanga he arataki a tātou. Kia ngākau nui ki te hāpai o tātou mahi katoa I roto I te pono, I te tika e te māramatanga me te aroha no te tihi ki te tihi. Koe ara e rongo whakairi ake ki runga kia tēnā. Hui e... O e ngā mana, e ngā reo, e rauranga tira mā tēnā koutou katoa. Tuatahi ake, ia manui a le vai oso o le ngangana Samoa, Happy Samoan Language Week. Tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou e hara mai nei ki te tautoko I tēnei kaupapa, I tēnei kōrero rangatira, ara ko Matariki kōrero hauora o te wai. Me mihi ki te pai kōrero o te pō, nau mai ngā pūkenga, nau mai ngā whiako, nau mai te mana o te puni wahine. Me mihi hoki ki ngā taonga I hora nei, nau mai te mātā pono o mana taonga. E tika ana te kōrero he puna wai, he puna kai, he puna reo, he puna ora, ita a ita. Nā runga I tērā, nau mai, haere mai I raro I te maru o tō tātou nei whare, o te hono ki Hawaii, ki runga o rongo marairua, ki ora mai koutou katoa. Welcome everyone to the kōrero for tonight. Ko Lucy Schrader Manuera tōku ingoa, ko au tētahi o ngā pukenga hotaka tūmata nui kaupapa Māori I te papa. I'll quickly run through our health and safety before passing over to our facilitator. In the case of an emergency or an evacuation, follow our host's instructions. Our hosts are wearing the Te Papa event shirts. If you need to go to the wharepaku bathrooms, they're just out right from the pounamu. And if you need to leave early, please leave quietly and just follow the path that you came in. Our facilitator for this evening is Miriana Johnson. Miriana Johnson no Ngaitahu no Rangitāne is a journalist, writer and MC. Tangata whenua at the heart of all of her mahi, from on-the-ground news coverage of protests for RNZ to delving deep into whenua kaupapa for current affairs show The Hui, to writing on whakapapa and whānau for the spin-off. She is also a second language learner of Te Reo Māori and is passionate about revitalising Te Reo Māori within her whānau, her hapu and her iwi. We are honoured to have her as our facilitator for this evening. Tēnā whakamihi atu kia Miriana.
Tēnā koutou katoa, tuatahi ka tika ka mihi ki a koe te kaikarakia ko Lucy, I tūpira mai te wāhine tēnā koe. Tēnei te mihi ki ngā mana whenua, ko te ati awa pānui, ko Ngāti Koa, toa, Ngāti toa, ka tika, tēnā kōrua. Ki te hunga mate, ko whiturangi tia, moi mai rā, moi mai rā, moi mai rā. Ki te whare nei, ko te papa, I haumaru mai a mātou I tēnei pō, I heke kaha mahi te ua hua kirikiri, tēnā koe te whare. Kia koutou mā, e hui mai nei, I tēnei te mihi ki o Maia, I tēnei pō, ki te tai mai, tēnā koutou. Ki te hunga e mātakitaki ana, e hono mai a ipurangi, tēnā koutou, tautoko tō whakaro, ka noho tonu ki te koanga. Nō reira, ka tika ka mihi ki te kaupapa, ko tērā te mana o te wai, nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you so much for being here. So excited to be sitting here with these two powerhouse wāhine in their own right, with their complementary mātauranga whakaro. Tonight we want to talk about te mana o te wai, and I love that Lucy opened with whakatauki. I had one of my own I was thinking of, ko te wai, te toto, te whenua, ko te whenua, te toto o te tangata. So the wai is the lifeblood of the land, and the land is the lifeblood of us as a people, which really speaks to the interconnectedness and how we are really dependent on the wai. And we know that our wai isn't in a good place, but hopefully tonight we can, it's Matariki, me puanga, if that's what you celebrate. So it's a time for us to reflect, turn inwards, and I guess think about ways that we can tiaki our wai in our own ways, within our hapu, our whānau, our iwi, and as a wider community. Nō reira, I want to introduce our panellists because they're the experts on this. So tuatahi to my immediate right, we have Hine Waitai-Dye, no Ngāti Kuri, a tāmoko artist and tārai waka, a waka builder, the first wahine to learn waka building. Yeah, paki mai. Ai. Meke. She was mentored by the late master waka builder, Sir Hekenuku Mai Busby, and she graduated as a master waka builder in 2023. No mai hine.
Kia ora.
And we have Tina Porou next to her, no Ngāti Porou, Ngāti Tūwharetoa, Ngāti Kahanunu, and Ngai Tamanuhiri, who is a geographer whose support for the protection of our taiao for 25 years. She founded Māori-owned and operated environmental consultancy Poipoia in 2016. No mai. I want to give you both the opportunity to, I guess let's start off with talking about why. Start with you, Hine. Is there an awa, a manga, a roto, a body of fresh water that you grew up around that really shaped who you are?
Definitely. I guess I'll talk about the two that are situated right together, which is the little place where I'm from in Te Hekuatika called Wairua. Some people may know it as Spirits Bay. It's quite a popular tourist attraction. Just to the right of Te Ringa Wairua, or where the Cape is, the lighthouse that people visit. That's my kāinga there where I grew up, where my great-grandmother lived in Raupo Whare, along the banks or along the ridges that overlook Waitanoni Awa and below our maunga piko. So those are the two, those are those two tohu that really shaped my relationship with Wai.
Kapu wairua.
Kapu wairua.
Yeah, tell me more about the whakapapa of kapu wairua.
I'll tell you the short version. So originally, the bay was called Hine. It's might I say, it's the most beautiful place in the world. Hayley can vouch for me on that one, my whanaunga in the crowd. It was originally called Hine. And then in the time when our last waka arrived, which was Kuraho Port, the ariki on that waka, his name was, the navigator on that waka, his name was Pi. The captain was Pōhurihanga, at that time, our captain. Pi was Pōhurihanga's best mate, and so to commemorate their voyage, which was a hectic one by the sounds of it, from Rangitahua, he renamed Hine Pi Hine. When his mokopuna came about, Tohe, who's one of our main tūpuna in Muri Whenua and in Te Tai Tokero, he went to go on his long haerenga to see his tōra Rārenikura, who had married into Ngāti Whātua. At this point in time, he was an old man. And so those of you who know the north know that around the motu, when we pass, our wairua travels along Te Ara Wairua, and there are many. They all amalgamate and come to a head at Te Ringa Wairua. When Tohe went to go on his journey, he knew he wasn't going to make it back in his physical tinana. So he said to his people, should I die on my hikoi, kapo here to Wairua, catch my spirit and keep it here. I don't want to go to Hawaii, I want to be here with my people. So now it's shortened into kapo Wairua, but yeah, it's a paradise on earth, that little place.
And no wonder with a kōrero like that, whakapapa kōrero, that it's had such an impact on you.
Yeah, it has. It's hard to talk about it without getting emotional.
Beautiful. Tina, what about you? Is there a wai, a roto, manga that's really shaped who you are?
Kia ora koutou. Sorry. I'm probably loud enough to not need it, but okay. Kia ora everybody. I think for me, I am a multiple iwi citizen, which is fabulous. I have licenses in all my whakapapa iwi, it feels like. So I was brought up under the maunga pihanga in Ngāti Tūrangi Tukua and Ngāti Tūwharetoa. And she is she is the being who kind of has determined all of our lives in Ngāti Tirangi Tukua. But she is super special to us because she has a range of puna that flow out of Pihanga and are essentially the source of all of our drinking water in Turangi. So Waipapa is the name of the whenua that she sits on. She is essentially the physical representation of waiu, of breast milk. So te waiu o Ngāti Tūwharetoa is a very important kōrero for us and for Pihanga in our histories and in our kōrero in Ngāti Tūrangi Tukua. You might have all heard the story of the Battle of the Mountains, largely written by men, can I just say, because now that we've reclaimed our stories as wahine Māori, we have been able to reassert ourselves in those discussions. So for Pihanga, often the story was she was a damsel and the mountains all fought over her because she was so fabulous. And our kōrero, and I was really fortunate to do some research on her in the last few years. In our kōrero, Pihanga was alone in the centre of the North Island with her koro Ruapehu. And so she was there with him and she decided it was time to find a husband. So in our kōrero and our hapu, she spoke to koro Ruapehu and they agreed that she would send out the call for the men to come to the central North Island. And so in our kōrero, she carried out the first karanga. And so she called out across Te Papa Mārearea, which is the Taupo Moana as her pai, and she called the men to her. So Tauhara, Tongariro, Ruapehu were there, Ngā Uruhoi, Putauaki, they all came to her. And as a result of her first karanga, she was able to choose of those men who she wanted to be with. Lots of beautiful kōrero out of that, but one of the I guess, compelling things for me around that kōrero was the control she had in determining her fate and choosing who she would be with. And as a result of that, when Ngāti Roirangi came to Aorohe to discover the areas around Tūwharetoa, he said, I bow to you, Pihanga. And as he was coming into Tūwharetoa, he was guided by 2 sets of stars and clouds, depending on how you interpret it. And they were twins, Magellan clouds, Ti Katakata and Ti Oriori. Twin dancing clouds, laughing clouds. And he followed those in, and as a result of that kōrero, the clouds, the stars came down and created 2 streams, Ti Katakata and Ti Oriori, that come off the puna of Pihanga and who feed into my hapu rohe. And so those are really important kaitiaki that we revere. And I was brought up on the banks of the Tongariro River, almost drowned there every summer. And then the rest of the summers we would go back up the coast and listen to my dad telling us all stories about the Waiapu. And so I was really fortunate to have the best of both worlds.
Ka pai, a tāhua kōrero. Yeah, isn't it beautiful? You know, that's, I mean, just in both of those responses there just encapsulates what we're talking about here when we say that, when we talk about the importance of wai, when we talk about it as a life force, as sustenance, literally as waiu, you know, as the breast milk that nourishes the people. When you first started out, Tina, as a geographer, you were obviously bringing that perspective into your relationship to the whenua. How was that received? What was it like at the time when people were talking about the land, you know, in non-Māori circles?
I would say that we didn't functionally describe the relationships we have with our wai in the way that we do now. We have evolved hugely in the way that we can discuss it and practice it. I look at Hine's mahi like, you know, I have seen the proliferation of some of the most unique relationships with our taonga that when I went to high school did not exist. We did not talk about Pihanga the way I just described Pihanga. We did not talk about the Tongariro River as a living being in the same way that we do it now. Largely, I think, because I was in the gap generation, I missed Kohanga Reo by a couple of years. My baby sister was the first year. So, you know, I think the evolution of the conversations are quite different. I chose geography because I couldn't get into art at the high school. I went to Tonga High School. TGI till I die is how we described it. But, you know, geography was not particularly given as a career to Māori, let alone anything, during my period at high school. I had a very amazing geography teacher, Mrs. Wakelin. She was from the Shetland Isles, and she said, I think you might like this. And so, living under the mountains, I'm a maunga person, ruau moko lover. And so, I think as a result of just living by it, and then working for my iwi from the time I was 17, it was osmosis more than on purpose. Certainly, our whakapapa created the platform, but I wouldn't say it was. It's just so different now. And the discussions that we have around taiao than it was when I was at school.
Yeah, Hapai, and we'll talk more about that because it's beautiful that our wai is being honoured as a life source rather than something to be bottled,
Exactly.
something to be bought out of a pump bottle. Hine, you went from a tāmoko artist, you still do tāmoko actually,
Yep.
but you transitioned from that to waka building. Are there similarities between the practices?
I guess there's not similarities between the application of the practice at all. Total different skill set. There are major crossovers not with artistic design, but with structural design. I think my background in moko really set me up well to have an eye for the structure of waka and the functionality of waka. With Hine's guidance, of course. Yeah.
What was that like? Why did you choose to move to waka building? What drew you?
Oh, I didn't have a choice.
Shoulder tap.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. When you're from the north, you're not owned by your iwi, but you're very much lent out by your iwi. These fellas are laughing because they're from the north too. They know what I'm on about. They're my whanaunga. No, I didn't have a choice. I was an iwi tono, but I gladly took up that opportunity. So, yeah, my background was fully in moko. My iwi tono for me to be taught at that time. The waka school had just transitioned from Papa Hector's whare out at Aurere there to Awanui through Hine, but they were still under, who were we under? NZ Maki Te Puia. So it was quite a controversial time being under Te Arawa for Wahine to move into that space. And initially my iwi had told for me to go in for whakairo, and none of this I knew of, by the way. This was all behind the scenes. And then it was turned down, of course, and rightfully so. And then they offered Stone and Bone, which was massive, but I would have to move to Rotorua, so I said, I'll do it, because you fellas are asking me to do it. Voluntold, definitely voluntold. And then, yeah, they pushed further and asked for me to go to Te Tapuwai, which is our waka school, which is based in Awanui. And the argument was that the mātauranga is in the north, the tohunga is in the north, and the school is in the north. So our tikanga should prevail, which is we are matriarchal. And our wahine did not everything, but lots of things that Tāne typically would only do in the other half of the country. So, yep, the north tikanga did prevail. And I was shipped off 5 minutes down the road from my house, which was lovely and warm. So yeah, I didn't have a choice, but when the opportunity presented itself after all that background scene had gone on, I jumped at it gladly. And knowing my tutor as well and having whakapapa to Hine and to Papa Hector, and being the succession of that knowledge through 3 generations would have been silly to turn that down. Yeah.
Were there tipuna, like do you have examples within your whakapapa or within your iwi of wahine waka building?
Not specific examples of wahine waka building in my iwi, but historically our iwi was known for its skill in waka building in the north. It's very well known. And then throughout my journey, lots of the things that I have been gifted, especially like when we visit our whānau in Hawaii and Tahiti and even right up in the Pacific Northwest, I have to travel there for waka quite a bit. Throughout those different kaupapa and builds of waka, I've been very blessed to have the exchange of the utu being they've shared their whakapapa of their wahine waka builders or karakia to atua, who are women waka building deity and stuff like that. So it's all the stars have aligned along the way, which has been really, really cool. Yeah, and not specific to my iwi, no, but it's been massive for, I guess, ngā iwi katoa and just for indigenous wahine around the world.
Aye, totally, can't play. That's kind of a good segue into, so you'll notice we have some taonga laid out here, which I think we'll start with the less conventional one, the jacket over there. Hine, can you tell us a little bit about that particular taonga?
Hapai. That's actually my favourite taonga on the table. So when they asked and when Te Papa presented this opportunity to come and share at this talk, they presented an even cooler opportunity, which was that we could bring some taonga out of archives, which is massive. It's massive for us to even go into archives, let alone bring them out into here. The only problem was that with my background in waka, we're at the other end of the country, so there's no taonga here that are from my area or my people, and I felt a bit funny about it, so I told them, you fellas pick the taonga. So they picked these hoi, which are absolutely beautiful, and I have a little bit of a kōrero about them as we roll into that. But this was the biggest surprise. They rolled out this jacket, which is from Te Aurere's maiden voyage. If anyone's familiar with Te Aurere, the first waka that Papa Hector ever built, and he sailed it. He learnt to navigate traditionally from Papa Mau via the stars. You can see the exhibition out there. And he took his crew of bloody pirates, mate, and might I add, because he wasn't a master waka builder at that time, which they love to point out, and I just think, man, hats off to you fellas for jumping on that or that fella and going around the motu, around the world. Oh, but I trust. I trust. A little bit of delusion, you know, but massive. And so that was from Te Aurere's maiden voyage. And I thought that was massive because they actually have Te Aurere's original mast in here, and that was the taonga that I asked to be brought out. But understandably so, it's freaking huge. It would poke those if they had it out here. So and the reason why I asked for something to do with Te Aurere is because I'm not a navigator myself. I'm strictly a waka builder. I'm not a sailor either, but we dabble in those circles because we have to fix and maintain, and we have to understand how they do what they do to be able to do that for them, to make their waka functional. But the reason why I wanted something to do with Aurere is because, yeah, those fellas that sail the likes of Aurere, Ngāhi Raka, all of that Te Toki voyaging crew, Te Tairāwhiti crew, they are the ones who know Waitai on a larger scale quite intimately and well. And they are the ones who are faced with the consequences of climate change, and they face what it is like when the hauora and the balance of the wai is not good. So just over 5 years now, they've been land-based. Like, that's crazy. They're a voyaging society.
So is it because the conditions have changed so much?
Yep.
They can't read the environment.
They can't.
Wow.
They can't be guaranteed. You can never be guaranteed your safety on the moana, but they can't even read the tohu well enough because of how treacherous the conditions are and how long the monsoon seasons are extending and the cyclone seasons are blowing out way longer and coming earlier or coming later. Yeah, so that was the reason why I was like so stoked when you had a little piece of Aurere here, the original Aurere. Yeah, just to bring that kōrero into the fold. And we can talk more about that later too, if you like.
Lots to unpack there, ka pai.
Yeah.
Tina, you have chosen a couple of your taonga no Ngāti Porou. So tell me a bit about, can you guys see it? It's just popped up a bit. There'll be a chance at the end, after the kōrero, to come up and actually have a look at the taonga and maybe touch them, I think. I just have to check with the organisers about that. But Tina, can you tell us a bit about your taonga?
Yeah, so we were laughing about it earlier. They gave us a big long list of gorgeous taonga, and I just went, Ngāti Porou, Ngāti Kahungunu, you know, I was like, Ngāti Tūwhareto, because I didn't want to bring out anyone's bones that weren't my own. So that's largely why I chose the ones I did. But I think the other reason I really loved both of these, the koteate is the name, I think, of what I would usually call a patu-like weapon, and that's, they said, from Hicks Bay in Ngāti Porou. And I think the reason I chose one a weapon and the other implement is to balance the two approaches of what we're having to do right now. So I talk a lot about building an army. We've talked about this before, building an army of taonga warriors, of, you know, take over the world. But a lot of that kind of kōrero comes from a deep connection to C Company, and actually my grandfather was a commanding officer in A Company as well. So that kind of approach around once we're warriors kind of thing, and once we're gardeners, hence the core. I think both of these are tools, and the methods in which we use them can be for peace or they can be for war, but sometimes they are to protect. And so I was really keen to make sure that we had a balance of those two opportunities. The core particularly just floats my boat because I'm really lucky to do stuff like this and sit next to people like Hine. But I am a policy wonk. Like, I write strategic plans and environmental policy for a living. It's super hard to be interesting next to mātauranga practitioners. But the last few years, because everyone was kind of like, oh my gosh, Tina, you know, and we joke about this, Caps and I, about, you know, the whole papatūānuku thing, and people ask me stuff about why and tāwhiri mātea and all the thing, and I'm like, man, you asked me about a piece in the Resource Management Act, I'm your girl. But as a result of this kind of momentum around taiao, I have had to become a gardener, because otherwise I'm just teats. I'm just all talk and no kiko. So anyway, I am a recent gardener the last few years, and my mates know this because they get shoved kamu relish every summer now, but the core is such an important implement, and it's the first time I've ever seen one in real life, and now I want to make one. I said this to my cousins, we need to make some for home. But again, I think it's the tension of the two that was really interesting to me, around how we use implements and weapons as the time is right. We pick up the koteate when we have to, and we pick up the core when we have to.
You probably feel like you're using the koteate a lot at the moment.
Well,
though,
yes.
Your policy mahi.
Yes, I do. I spend several days a week what I call the patu corona days, and so I do think I'm leaning on the koteate rather than the core at the moment, but without the core, then nothing exists. So I was really, really excited about both of them, and you would have to be super tall to dig a garden with a core that big.
Yeah.
But so those were the two, and I know there's a pounamu mere as well that we pulled out from Ngāti Porou, but it was a bit delicate to be here. And what I liked about that too is clearly pounamu does not come from Ngāti Porou. And that relationships meant that pounamu ended up in Ngāti Porou, long, complex relationships between Ngaitahu and Ngāti Porou. And so I just thought it was a lovely representation of the fact that we do actually have to come together. That to create beautiful art like that, we have to share the taonga across our rohe. And I am just reminded how important taonga like this are in those connections. I also love pounamu particularly because to me, and I'm not from Waitai, and I know you are, so this is all about fangirling, not appropriation. Pounamu for me is about physical representation of te Māori or te wai. And as I understand it, as a layman, some of your whānau can determine where the pounamu come from which awa. And they are such a beautiful representation of the combination of all the characteristics in an awa, the Māori of that awa in that minute to create something so unique that I see it as a physical representation of the Māori of that awa.
Oh, tāhua.
And so I love
we
pounamu.
accept that beautiful explanation. We will take that on. I love that.
It's a manuhiri reflection, of course, but I do love pounamu because I think that's what, for me, it represents.
Yeah, even though being Ngātai, I probably wouldn't talk to pounamu because Kāori, ahau nor Ngāti Waiwai nor the coast, but yeah, it is like it's magic how, and the different, you get the kawakawa, you get the inanga, it's its own stunning process, eh? Yeah, I guess that's a really beautiful segue actually into relationship to wai, which you've both already spoken to, but how do you connect? Often when we're saying our pepeha, right, and we live away from home, you live still in your rohe though, but living away from home, sometimes it feels like you're just paying lip service to your awa, your maunga when you do your pepeha. How do you connect our tinana, but also our wairua with the fresh bodies of water in your rohe? Have a regular practice?
Man, I find it hard to talk about because it's something that we do all the time, and that's just how we were raised. And I didn't realise it was a thing until I guess the last sort of 4 or 5 years when our Y26 tūmahi has really ramped up, and we've been called as the mokopuna of my great nanny Sana to come and speak on the matters, and I'm like, this is the stuff that we grew up doing, why are we talking about it? But it's obviously a...
Well, it's going in a report.
yeah, totally. How do I answer that question?
Because it can just be as simple. Yeah, it can just be as simple as like, do you go to your awa?
Yeah.
Every day?
Yep. Not every day. I guess there's heaps that we do. I guess for me as a practitioner and I'll just speak strictly from the waka building space, when you head into kapu wairua, our kāinga, it is like, honestly, like, it looks untouched by man, aside from the odd wharepaku that are placed around for people to camp and stuff like that. It looks like, almost like how it should have looked and how it would have looked. And we grew up on the stories of our nanny's time when she still lived along the ridges in Raupo Whare and waka lined the shores of Waitanone awa. So our awa, it is freshwater, but it's named Waitanone with the mix of the salt and the fresh water. It flows out into the sea and it's intertidal to a certain point. It was the only thing that was missing, was waka. Our taro are still there, the remnants of our kumara, our mara are still there, our kāri, we call them kāri up home. Everything was there except for waka, so I guess in my adult years, my big push and my connection with my awa specifically, not to mention our moana, which is just right there flowing out into it, has been bringing back waka to our little village, but more specifically waka kōpapa, which is like and waka tete, our everyday waka for everyday use, not ceremonial, not, we all go to Waitangi and man, ngā toki matawhāua, mātātua, and all these other big waka that we build and look after. But it's for 1, 2, 3 days a year. So for me, our big push to help our people connect with our wai even more was to bring back that functional waka and bring back the practice of using them, racing them, fishing, the kids just having fun on them. It brought a whole other element and relationship to our wai because we're usually there to either have fun in the summertime or to take kai. But through practice, it helps us restore our relationship with the actual resources that are in there, that are in that wai.
It makes it ordinary again. I mean, our tipuna didn't just roll out the waka ceremonially, like,
No.
you know, in our rohe of Ngāti Kuri and the Kaikoura rohe, I mean, we've been doing some rangahau about, you know, we use mōkehi, like all of our awa, moki, were, you know, that's how we got around. Those were our roads. Those were our main routes to travel around our rohe.
Yep.
Our waka. There's a reason waka is the name for car, So trying to bring back that, making it ordinary again, just using waka.
Yep. And then, so this summer we actually had the Te Papa crew come up. We did our first time in 4 generations since my nanny's time that we ventured beyond our little kāinga in Kapu Wairua, and we carried along the beach in Kapu Wairua to a place called Paranoa. It's a repo that our people have been locked off for 4 generations, and it hasn't been harvested from for 4 generations. Us with Ngāti Wai, Leroy and Waitene over there, they come up, and our Ngaitahu whānau, they come later on. But we did our first harvest in 4 generations in that repo in Paranoa, which really led us to dive into and understand how our repo work, what Raupo's function is on the whenua and in the wai Māori, and then its function and how it plays a massive, massive role in feeding the ocean, essentially. So there was a whole big wānanga and learning piece there around that. But yeah, we can talk more about that
later. It's never just one thing. It's not just we're doing waka. We're harvesting dopo. They are connected by the way, and they all interconnect with each other.
Yep.
Tina, how about for you?
I wish I could say that, you know, I spend my time in my awa practicing. I think my biggest connection, I've been reflecting as you were talking in there, of connection to my wai is in the defence of my wai. And so I have spent a lifetime seeing government after government and developer after developer choose economic outcomes over water. And so because of that, because I've had to spend more time in defence, I don't get to do as much as the beautiful stuff that I would love to do. I get to hang out on the periphery, and I get to do cool stuff with great people, and I get to advocate for the work that they get to do. But largely my connection to my water has been in its defence. I was a goalkeeper for many years, and I think it's appropriate that I was a defender and not an attack. But defence is I think something that is considered, a given to us. And what I have seen in the last probably 20 years is the proliferation of mātauranga and practice as the lead for the defence, whereas before it was just defence in the law and in policy as our only kind of layers. But now just this puna of mātauranga being reconnected with and practiced has made my job 1,000 times easier and more interesting. But it has, I think, in some ways, and I say this respectfully, I think sometimes we can sometimes get lost in the practice alone, And so we need to have two layers of that kind of conversation, because it's like what you said about climate change. As fast as we are reconnecting with our mātauranga, the environment is dying faster than our practices. And, you know, it can be difficult sometimes, and I know a lot of our whānau find it difficult sometimes to have to participate in Western frameworks, and I get that.
Everyone's been writing a lot of submissions,
hard out, which, you know, I'm always like, because I also am fight the machine, and so I really struggle being in roles where I have largely coloured within the lines. That is extremely marginalising. You have to be able to compromise a certain level of rage. Like, one of the reasons I garden, I call it my rage garden, because every time I've been annoyed, the last few years, I've planted another tipu.
Kapai.
Because I needed to challenge the rage, but I also had to keep my, you know, I got to keep my, I was going to say, shit together, because there are layers that only I can walk into. And it sucks, because I have to have my Pākehā voice on, and I have to manage that, when it also, I am burning with the rage to burn it all down. It is deeply felt, I know, in amongst a lot of us. And at this point, I recognise there are some lanes that I have to hold on to, because if we're not in them, you know, we're going to be in the hangi, not cooking it. Yep. So I am conscious of that. So but I'm often reminded, and I'm going back to the Klamath River next month, and we were invited back to the Klamath with the Yurok people in California and Oregon, because they've blown up every dam on their river in a year. Oh, yeah. And I've talked about this a lot because I'm so excited about it.
And I was like, oh no, and then I was like, oh, they're blowing them up.
Oh no, they're blowing them up.
Yes.
They blow them up. It's so exciting, because I'm also a dam person, so brought up by the dams, and I hate them. And so as a result of that experience, they actually blew them all up within a year. 100 years, those dams existed and blocked their salmon and blocked their kanakana, and now they've blown them up and they're doing a tirahui waka. I shouldn't call it that, I don't know what they're calling it, but I think of it as tirahui, you know, the first undisturbed, broken time. They've taught their kids how to kayak, and they did that over the summer. Now they're doing the full descent. And they've invited a couple of us to go over and join them, which is why I think, as much as I spend my time unwillingly in front of my laptop writing really boring policy, sometimes that policy is the difference between us having a tuna, or being able to swim in an awa, or being able to drink out of my maunga pihanga. Sometimes it is the one layer left. And as much as I would love to just be on a river, we are in a fight.
We mihi to you, because without the work that you do, we wouldn't have the ability, we wouldn't have healthy awa for waka building, for harvest, for swimming in. So tēnā koe, kia atu kia koe.
Sorry, the rage builds.
How is the rage garden? Is it blossoming?
Well, it's a winter garden, so let's just say there ain't no broccoli going right now, but the tipu will be starting up soon, and we live from season to season at the moment.
Kaupai. Well, you touched on such an, you know, I love the duality that you speak about, and I'm quite blown away about how actually, yes, we've got this beautiful reviving waka tradition, but the climate is changing so quickly that we are only able to sail those waka. How do you balance that in your mahi? I mean, it must be tricky. Do you kind of think, God, I'm building these waka, but I don't know what conditions they'll be sailed under, if they'll be sailed?
Side piece, I do a lot of mahi with Tina and my mum in the environmental space, so I'm quite across that stuff as well. In terms of building waka to sailing waka, I've not built one. My tutor Hine, he's not built one. We're essentially not building sailing waka anymore. We're building waka taua, waka tete, waka kōpapa, all sorts of paddling waka, like traditional Māori waka. But in terms of sailing waka, what our country has at the moment is more than enough to revitalise the different skill sets needed to utilise them. And it's a safe number of a fleet with the current climate crisis that we're living in. So it's something that everyone sort of like racks up about, you know, straight away when we come to it. Everyone wants a waka haurua, everyone wants a big flash waka haurua. They see the, you know, and they hear the romanticised stories about voyaging and being voyagers and ocean people, which is mean. It's massive, and it is good to see that fire is in our pukus everywhere we go. But the harsh reality of it is that our environment, and that's what we need to be aware of, the need isn't there, and it's not safe. So being in our lanes and knowing that is a real key part of it, because we could easily build one in 2 months, but I mean...
Oh, can I have it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Do you get people doing that? Yeah, I'd love a waka.
Oh, fully, all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'll give you 3 next week. Yeah. So just being aware, and that's about us being aware and real about, and in tune with our environments as well, and what's happening is a massive part of it. Because if we become, as practitioners, if we become disconnected from that, and see dollar signs, hell yeah, you can have a waka haurua next week, because I'll be rich. But you're setting a whole bunch of people up to potentially fail and die. So it's about being connected with our environment and our resource. And that's another thing too. The resource is not there for us to service these waka that we're building.
In terms of the rako, actually to build with. And so do you use particular rako with your waka? Yep.
So traditionally from the north, it's mostly kauri, because that's what we're known for, and that's our big rako that we have. As you head down towards Tina and them's way, you get the big old tōtara, which are just... Our tōtara in the north aren't quite as flash. We don't get the frosts. It's a little bit too warm. But yes, that's what I want to hear. That's where I was going with that. Oh. But, you know, late 1800s, early 1900s, we had all the kauri milling and logging situations, kauri and tōtara, all of our big trees. A lot of our big trees are gone, and those that are left are such tino taonga to us that we won't take them. We can't take them.
So do you just wait until one falls?
Yep, natural felling is like pretty much the only way that we access our native taonga timber. Otherwise we use alternatives like poplar. Poplar's a real good one. Japanese cedar. And what we've trialled using up in Te Paki, up in Ngāti Kuri, is old radiata pine off. A lot of our farms have got them, and they have no use for them, so they're just getting left in big piles and rotting into the whenua where it secretes some real nasty stuff. So we've been experimenting with turning a pest into a taonga.
Cool.
Yeah.
Does it shape up the same?
It shapes up bloody good. It's perfect for waka kōpapa in the sense that the way we're making them, we're choosing really good logs, not ratty ones that we'd need to glue and epoxy and stuff like that. So we're doing it all natural and old school, and using traditional ways of seasoning the rako. So burying them in the swamp, burying them in the sand dunes, wet, letting them season naturally, using fire, using our hinu prawa and ko to make kokowai, all those natural sort of things. So
how long do you season them? Like you season a pan? Put them in
kind of thing. Yeah. Similar concept. Usually a few months, but that's something I'm still learning from our tohunga, from Hine and Justice's Papa Te Wārahi. But the whole concept around that is that with those pest rako, we're doing it all naturally. We know they're not going to last the lifetimes that our larger waka would last, because we're using all sorts of nasties on them. So we just put them back into the whenua when they're finished. They may only last 5-6 years, But that in turn keeps that skill set alive and all those other skill sets that feed into that. So harvesting parawa and rendering the whale oil and the spermaceti, knowing where on your whenua to gather the kokowai to make that.
And it's adaptation. You're working with what you've got available to you, your resources.
And knowing our natural resources in the places that they are, yeah. So it's a cool little circle of life.
Yeah. Ka pai. Oh, waka building, man. Could just talk about it for days. When do you become, like you've graduated, but you know, when do you feel, how long does it take to get to a point where you feel like you know everything about waka building, like being a master?
I wouldn't have a clue. Like, so my knowledge comes from Papa Hector was the first in our line, right? Revitaliser of that mātauranga. Hine was his. He had many people that learnt with him along the years, but Hine was essentially his only proper successor. Hine is then taught Billy Harrison, his wife is in the crowd over here, Irina, my whanaunga, Haimona Brown, Bryce Motu, and myself. So there's each one of us from each of the iwi we whakapapa o iwi muri whenua. Where was I bloody going with that, kōrero?
This whakapapa that you are part of now, of learning how to becoming a master.
So Hine, you know, he had all the time with the master. He still won't call himself a master, you know, and we're just mātanga essentially at the moment. We're just practitioners of what's been dripped down through Hine, little bits from Papa Hek, because at that point in time, when I come on the scene, I mean, he passed away in my first, like after a year of me being in Te Tapawai o Te Waka. Billy had the most time with him, so Billy's like someone who I lean on a lot as well as Hine, although Billy graduated a long time before me and is in my generation of practitioners, he's still someone who holds a lot more mātauranga. So I wouldn't have a clue on when you would refer to yourself as a tohunga, because our chief still won't, so we never would. Yep.
And in terms of how, I'll come back to you, Tina, I'm deep in the waka questions now.
Diving deep.
In terms of when you're building a waka, how do you think about its relationship to the wai, like when you're shaping it?
That's almost the biggest part of it. It's functionality. You need to know the way that it's going to go and be on most. Because some travel around. You look at Manawa Kuaka, one of the ones we built recently. Man, she's travelled all around the motu and been in all sorts of water, so she's quite versatile and made to be versatile. But that is a big part of the of those first wānanga that you're having with the whānau or the hapa or the iwi that are receiving the waka is like, okay, we almost spend more time with them figuring that out and looking at their water and the conditions of their water, the conditions of their people, and marrying up the skill level with the conditions to what we can provide for them. So the functionality of the waka is all based around where it's going to live and be and work. Yeah.
Which is why it's even more important to know what the conditions are going to be like and why it's so challenging when they're changing all the time.
Super challenging. And that's a big part of our mahi too, and I think why Hine sort of had a lot of us on is all of us who have been through and graduated have a strong relationship with our own waters, whether it be, like, I know for myself and Billy, we fish, dive, surf. Billy is a kaihotu on a waka, having that relationship with the different types of waters is all key to creating a waka that's safe for the people that are going to use it, because what we make has literally got their lives, and we've got their lives in our hands, and it's a big responsibility that always hangs over us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tina, how do you see your role in enabling? There's one element of our changing environment, which is adaptation. You know, changing what materials you use, accepting that there's a certain amount of environmental change that has already, been built in. But the other part of it, in terms of mitigation, how do you see your role? How can you affect change so that we can sail our waka?
I think Hine's described it really well. We have to evolve. That I was talking to Che Wilson on the way over here. That's why I was late. Because once we're on the phone together, it becomes 50,000 side quests. But one of the things we were talking about is the requirement to have tension. And, you know, he was discussing around some of the karakia that they're reviving for puanga. And, you know, he's trying to translate them in English so they're accessible to, you know, the whole country. But he was talking about this central theme of chaos and needing chaos to constantly challenge us to evolve. And we were discussing around how, you know, a stagnant body of water is like that because it has not been able to have ins and outs. So you've got to have the inputs and the outputs to be able to evolve and change and be resilient. If you are a stagnant pool of water with no inputs and outputs, then you will die. And I think that's one of the kind of key challenges we have because we're losing so much of our mātauranga because the taiao is in some places irreversibly changed, that we have a need to protect it the way it is, to put up fences. That is a very Western model. We are not conservationists. We do not conserve. We
don't
align.
separate ourselves
no, we
from
don't.
the environment.
It's our relationship with that. Like, you know, I remember talking to Department of Conservation about some kaupapa, and they kind of said, well, what's your aspiration? And I said, I want to eat kēreru in my lifetime without going to jail. And it was like skinning a newborn baby and throwing it on the table. How dare I think that I could have the audacity to eat kēreru? And I was like, unless I know what it tastes like, I'm not going to know how to protect what it eats. You know, so I think this heavy emphasis on conservation, as if that is a Māori concept, is going to be the death of us. Unless we are practicing, unless we are eating it, unless we are catching it, unless we are understanding its life cycles, that taonga will die. And so we are interdependent on it. And so I genuinely worry sometimes about our need, but I get where the need comes from to conserve and protect. But if we continue to do that, you know, for example, we've been talking a lot at home around having a predator-free fence around pihanga so that she can become a kohanga. I'm not doing that so people can go bird watching. I'm doing that so we can eat kēreru. And, you know, my nanny talked about how her favourite kai was tui. I've never eaten a tui in my life.
Wow.
And I remember hearing this at our whānau wānanga, because she'd send her mokos up to pihanga to go and catch the tui. We've got waka kēreru all over the place, you know. And I was like, I just never actually realised you could eat tui.
I feel like there's not enough meat on them.
Wow, she must have had a couple.
Just snacking on
Yeah. She's Kentucky Fried Tui,
On
man.
tui.
Like, honestly. But those are the types of practices that mean that I know what I'm talking about around pihanga, instead of looking at her and going, oh, pihanga, you're amazing. So I do think we have to get to a point where protectionism is not getting in the way of the chaos required to evolve. And that's the only way we're going to actually survive climate change and thrive in a climate-changed environment. And that means, though, that what took us 1,000 years to understand, we're going to have to recognise and understand within 50 years. Because the changes we've described today are happening so rapidly that we have to come up with the technology and the required intellectual capacity to observe quicker than we ever have before. We do not have a millennia anymore to come up with the mātauranga. We have to do it in a lifetime. So I think those are the types of really kind of intellectual conversations we have to have about ourselves that may not always happen on the marae. And we have to create the platforms which I'm seeing in Kura Taiao, Kura Reo Taiao, which are just chef's kiss, honestly. They are the best places in the world. And so you need to come to the Tūwhare Kura Taiao in September. That's why I also wanted to come to talk to you. But these have become platforms for much more diverse and deeper conversations around taiao, technology, tikanga, kawa, mātauranga than I think we've been able to do in a marae environment alone.
Yeah.
I think if I could add on to that, we're having to do and observe at such a rapid rate whilst being removed from the source. We're living in a removed Western society. So how do we do that? How do we be out there? How do we be amongst it and be one with it? Because we are all one in it. We attain it to it. How do we do that whilst we're living in our pink batched house in town, you know, and shopping at Pack and Save?
Yeah. Are there...
I don't know.
Yeah. If anyone's got any answers, just let us know.
Far away.
Oh, really? What are some little ways, because those of us humble people here aren't going to be great waka builders or smashing down doors down in the Kawanatanga. Oh, could I? Maybe. So what are some simple ways that we all could tiaki our way, whether it be in the rohe you live in, if you live out of your rohe, or if you're privileged enough to be on your lands, back at home?
I am a current manuhiri. I apparently live in Wellington sometimes. And so as a manuhiri, it is not my job to do anything on the way here unless I am invited to. I think that's a really important first step. I'm a very grateful manuhiri living here in Ngāti Toa and Te Atiawa. But I would never be so rude as to impose my views on the awa that they whakapapa to. That doesn't mean that I live away from home, but you would never guess because I'm not an urban Māori. I live in a city, but I don't have the same experiences that our whānau who have been raised in the cities and have created beautiful lives for themselves in the cities. So for me, yeah, exactly. So for me, what that has meant, I'm a Ngāti Porou tourist, is how I like to describe myself. I go back when it's summer and I live all the great things in Ngāti Porou. My cousins and my whānau retain for me, and I go home and I'm basking in the glory of my Ngāti Poroutanga, and then I go back to my house. But what I have learned, I think, about being a good taurahire and being ahika in Tūwhare Toa is that one of the important aspects of it is being humble, knowing your lane and staying in it, which is a core lesson. And I have found great, I guess, a great space of comfort around being able to access the repositories of knowledge that my iwi have provided to me. Kapa and I talk about being culturally privileged a lot. That is a thing.
Yeah.
You know, I am lucky. I can go back to Tūwhare Toa and go, I want to go and look in the museum, and people go, sweet as tea. Even with the core, Te Papa goes, do you need to go back to your iwi to ask if you could thing? I said, who am I talking to? They said, this runanga and that one. I went, no.
All good.
I am happy. You know, that's a privilege.
Yeah.
And so I totally get that. But what it means, though, like if I think about, for example, Radio Ngāti Porou have got repositories of interviews of nannies and papas all online. They put up karakia and waiata. I can jump on YouTube and I can learn Paikia
if I wanted to, if I was living somewhere else. Like, that is a privilege. In Tūwhareto, I get to go home for all our wānanga marae meetings, first Sunday of every month. I don't go to church, instead I go to my marae meetings. Those are all culturally privileged expressions of my whakapapa to wai. A lot of this is meeting yourself halfway. To not be overwhelmed by our own insecurities around if we're enough, if we whakapapa enough, if we know enough, have we been to the marae enough, have we, you know, they have given my two iwi and all of my iwi, they have come halfway. You just got to go the other.
Yeah, meet them.
Yeah, yeah. And because I am ahika and tūwharetoa, I had to create a whole expression of my Ngāti Parautanga that is based on being a taurihiri. So I've got this really interesting dual experience. To connect with your wai, you have to connect with your whakapapa first.
So if you're not invited, is it about being conscious about, for instance, how often you run the tap, how you look after the wai, you know?
Those are very, frankly, Western ways of describing the relationship. I think the first step is know your whakapapa. If you don't know your whakapapa, then you can't connect with your wai. The second part of that, after the whakapapa, because whakapapa for me is the Willy Wonka golden ticket. You got the golden ticket if you got the whakapapa. So that is your platform to greatness. The second part of that is once you know your whakapapa, then it is to have a purposeful relationship with the taonga that you whakapapa to. I know a lot of whānau who have never been to the maunga or the wai that they recite in their pepeha when they introduce themselves. And that is also a culturally privileged place, so I'm not bagging on people who haven't, because some of us have never lived in our own rohe or we live too far away. But there is a level of consciousness that comes from the physical connection to your wai that has to come first. Tina Ngata talks about you can't be a kaitiaki from a distance. First step, go to your waters. The rest will come. You go to the wai and you go, oh my gosh, there's a big pipe going into it. And then you go, whoo, that's what I got to do. You know, go to your wai. If you don't live at home, then see, you know, how you can connect to your wai from afar. Just knowing about it is important.
Pai, tēnā koe. What's your advice, Hine?
I think I'm going to double down on what Tina's just talked about in an even smaller scale. And I think and I'll use myself as an example, I'm obviously live at home and are quite active and connected with my wai. Yeah, I'm an ahika, but still when I approach it and enter that space, it's not with the intention or the mindset that that's mine and I'm going to go and have a mean day, I'm going to have some fun, this is my backyard, this is my playground, I'm going to gather all the kai. I'm there like, okay, this is many things whare, it's their actual whare, it is where they live, it is still their whare, it's still theirs. I'm second to that, always, 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 always. And even if you don't live at home or haven't been to your awa or your moana before, it's just, you don't need to be connected to a tohunga to tell you how to be there. You just need to be there and listen to the taiao. I can walk along my awa and know, oh, nah, that tōrea is not quite happy with me being here. Oh, heck, he's actually got a nest. Oh, he's got a nest over there. I need to go along this way. His nest is there. The tuatua that I'm trying to get are right there, but he might actually need to sustain the chicks that are in that nest. So I'm actually going to go hide along the beach a little bit further away because that's their little kainga. It's about being aware of all those little things.
These are the tohu we talk about, eh? And
the tohu.
sometimes tohu, I feel like, gets made out to be like some sort of mystical thing. We're just vibing
very.
the environment. It's really actually just reading what's around you, what the species are doing.
And that's the best starting point, is like just being still and listening and observing. And that's what it's all about. And that's how you will get to know your wai really well. Yeah. I don't know, I could talk about that on and on and on, but there's all those little things along the way before you even get to your wai, the pingao and the grasses that you're crashing to get there, what's in there, moko moko, katipo.
Oh, that's so
Pupu.
prolific in your rohe, hey?
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the sand dunes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It's one of our main resources for Raranga in the north, yeah.
So could it be, if you live outside of your rohe, it's actually just about getting to know your rohe?
Yeah.
What sort of taonga species do you have? Go for a hikoi.
Yep.
I mean, how many manga do we have just underneath us in Te Whanganui Tara, just running all through pipes? Tuna that are running underneath us. Yeah.
And through getting to know what your backyard is like your awa or your maunga is like, and having that relationship, you then see the change and differences that might be early or late or aren't normal at all or are directly from human impact, and that's when you can go, okay, I'm passionate about this, how can I help?
Ka pai.
Boom.
Tēnā kōrua. I want to open up to the floor for pātai. I'm sure everyone has heaps of pātai, and use this opportunity. How often do we have two puna mātauranga sitting right in front of you? So, kōrero mai, there's a mic at the back there. Ko e whakamā, don't be shy. No question is, I asked a lot of waka questions, basic waka questions, so if that's what you want to ask, tuku mai. Any takutaina? Kia ora.
Kia ora. E taina o Miriana. Engari, it's kōrero o Hine. It talks about the raupo and its relationship with Te Moana. In our rohe, there's a lot of still, this seem really still puna, with lots of raupo, and the whakaro of our mum, she was like, oh, it's just taken over. But it just seems like it swallowed the wai. And, te rape, what do you think is up with the raupo? Is it like too much and there's got nowhere for the water to go?
Can there be an unbalance of raupo?
I guess there can, and that comes down to us not practicing our practice again and being in balance with it and keeping things in balance, because for so many hundreds of years, or if you're from Ngāti Kuri, thousands of years we were here. For so long, we were utilising that resource, and obviously quite imbalanced, because if we took too much, that would mean we would have none for our whare next year or none for our mokihi to get across. So it was a matter of life and death. So for so many years we have harvested and had this symbiotic relationship with it, and then for the last 100 years we've just gone, it's no use to us, it's a swamp, you know. So there are imbalances, and we're not experts on it at all, and this is our first time sort of doing it under the guidance of our tohunga, who were the last sort of practitioners in our area with it. And from my little experience, yeah, it is about finding that balance again with our resource. But also, I don't know how bad it is in the sense that where we're from, our big wetlands, they flow out into the sea, and obviously raupo is the cleaner of all the para that comes off the whenua and then turns it into nutrients and feeds it out to the sea. So when we've got more raupo, we're like, yes. But I don't know how it is for you and your fellas, yeah. Sorry.
Tina, could it be a tohu of that there's lots of para that it needs to clear out?
Like repo are unique, and some of them have been greatly impacted by drainage, and some of them are not natural anymore. Mm-hmm. So it depends if your wetland is actually a natural wetland or one that's been created. We did some restoration, which I never knew, but it can't be called a repo if it's too deep or it's too shallow. Mm-hmm. And so if the water isn't sitting right where a wetland needs for it to be the kidney, because that's what it essentially is, it's a cleanser, then it ends up kind of repopulating itself with things it thinks it needs. But sometimes people will, especially farmers, bless them, also, you know, they will drain.
Covering yourself there, eh?
Bless them,
That's fine.
because I am one as well, so I need to chill. But often, if they're not allowing the wetland to breathe naturally and come in and out, then you get imbalances. It depends. It 100% depends on where you are and the health of the repo. But going back to what Hine said, sometimes if there's too much of something, it can be easy to take it out. Last weekend, Soraya Pohatu, I'm a huge fangirl of Soraya Pohatu. She is seed gatherer extraordinaire. She's a tohunga around our plant species. She spent last weekend on Muriwai Beach cutting the heads of all of the pampas grass.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to go in and have a crack if there's too much of something. I watched her from my couch. Like it on Facebook, thinking, go cousin, you know. But the best kaitiaki are often those ones who kind of go, I'm curious about that, and maybe there is a way that I can adjust. Whereas Soraya, you know, honestly, out there with the scissors.
Wow.
Chopping off the heads of all the pampas grass on a beach. I was like, man, now those are the heroes.
Those are the true kaitiaki.
Those are the ones, man.
Ka pai. Another pātai? Well, while you're thinking, since it's Matariki, me puanga. Actually, that's a good pātai. Matariki or puanga for you, Tina?
So from Tuwharetoa, I'm on the southern side of the lake, so we can see both Matariki and puanga. We are super privileged. Whereas if I'm on the other side of the hill, which, well, I shouldn't call it the hill, the mountain, but we call it over the hill. You know, you go further towards Ngāti Rangi, they are more practices of puanga. But for us in Tuwharetoa, where I am, particularly from Kākaramia and Tihia, who are the peaks next to Pihanga, you can see both Matariki and puanga. But, you know, to be honest, this is all new to us too.
Yeah.
Like we are reviving all of that stuff, and so grateful to Rangi and Che for you know, reviving these things. But, you know, we all, hey, I just bought a new fire pit for my hautapu at home, and I was like, this is the bougiest Maori thing you could possibly do. Yes. And I got the notification got delivered to my house this morning. I was like, yes, I cannot wait so that we can do a fancy hautapu.
Hautapu 2025.
Look, seriously, I made a pact a couple of years ago when it was all being revived, and I promised my son that Matariki and puanga would be a much bigger holiday in our house than Christmas. And so we've been trying to do that. When you've got kids and they're like, oh, hanakoko, you know, transitioning into kumara and a boil up on Matariki ain't always as exciting. But we are committed, hence the new fire pit thing. But I do think that it has just created a whole new conversation about who we are as Māori, who we are connected to our taiao, and I'm just here for it. I'm like fully, if this was a capitalist ploy, you know, like Valentine's Day and all that stuff, I would have been, take my money, I'm terrible. There's a new t-shirt, Hori's releasing a new Matariki line, I'm like, boom, that's me, I am the worst.
Getting top of the range,
hard out.
Love it.
But I just love the distinct indigeneity of it. No one else can take that away, and for me it's the decolonisation of time itself, and I love it.
Kōrero. Hine, what about you? Matariki or puanga? What do you celebrate?
I'm going to stay absolutely in my lane and say that I've not had much to do with either of the two, although Justice is mouthing puanga to me over there, and I'm remembering a conversation that I had with one of our kaumātua, Uncle Graham, my auntie and whanaunga over there will know very well what he is like. What is this bloody Matariki crap they're talking about? It's only puanga. So up where we are, apparently it's puanga.
Ka pai.
Yep.
But we are here
But we're here for it.
But,
We love
yeah.
it.
And this year we're Matariki me puanga, so
Yeah.
you guys are represented. Ka pai. Does anyone have any questions that they've thought of while we're talking about Matariki puanga? Any fire pit related questions? How to bougie up your hautapu? Director Tina here. Ka pai. Well, it's a windy, wet night, so everyone's feeling quiet. But I hope you've taken something away from this kōrero. It's been so rich and hohonu, you know, we've really dived deep. And tēnei te mihi nunui kia korua I o mātauranga. Ai, paki mai tātou. Tēnā korua. They've turned, I'm back on. There's an opportunity now to come up and look at the taonga, and Tina and Hine will stand around, they talk to you about their taonga, and also there'll be some Te Papa staff floating around too. If you want to know a little bit more about specific pieces, you can ask them. Thank you so much. It is actually fitting that we came out, that you all came out tonight, you know, mihi ki waipunarangi, because geez, really. And now we've got Tāwhiri Mātia making a lot of noise, but only fitting that it's a heavy, rainy night for a kōrero about wai. So mihi atu kia koutou, come up and have a look at the taonga. Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you.
O tēnei te mihi atu ki ngā pūkōrero o te pō, korua ko Tina, ko Hine. Nā korua I whakatakoto I ngā whakaro rangatira, no reira tēnā rawa atu korua. Tuarua me mihi ka tika ki a koe miriana, ki tō tātou kai whakahaere o te pō, nau I tau tāwhi I te kaupapa, tēnā rawa atu koe. Behind us you may see our upcoming schedule for our other Matariki events. And if you're wanting to share any thoughts about tonight's event, please feel free to use the QR code just to the side there to fill out a survey. I runga I tērā me karakia whakakapi tātou. Hikitia, te rongo mai whiti o tēnei kōrero, tēnei wānanga, tuku a kia ea, tuku a kia ui, ko rangi nui e tui honei, ko papa tuanuku e takotoa ki nei tuturo, whiti whakamaua, kia tīna. Hui e, tai ki e. Tēnā koutou.